Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka TheIndianJesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you. And let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party, guys. That is the best part, so make sure you're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. So we, actually really quick, if you would like to support the channel, there goes my co-host, head on over to TheIndianJesus.com for your very own official merch. All right. Shout out to Nick in the building. Welcome. So if you are here and looking at a different title about Minds Fest, something other than this, I had to pull an audible. Everything was ready. I came down here, and the last thing, just pulling up the conversation, and turns out they decided to private that video. Luckily, I am always prepared, and I've got something else here that I know you guys will love. Shout out to Russell Brand. He recently did this kind of thing that seems to be like what everybody is doing, and becoming a Christian. Despite the fact that, so much of his life has been about, I'm a man of the world and this type of philosophy and that type of thing. And now he's a Christian, just like everybody else. Hey, shout out to Zippy DSM Lee. All right, Mike's sounding good. Very good. Shout out to M169. Welcome. And we got John all the way from Iowa. Welcome. As always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Hey, everybody. I've got a chance today to continue my ongoing conversation with Russell Brand.
That's me.
I want to talk to him today about the collective unconscious and about what it is, because I think we now understand what it is. I'm talking to him about sacrifice as the basis of community, about the distinction between authority and power and logos and power, about the danger of the use of power, about the necessity of the story, about how all that's played out in his own life, about the proclivity of the modern self to identify itself with its whims and desires and passions, and the inevitability that that identification turns into something that closely approximates worship, the idea that something has to supplant that for maturation to take place and for society itself to stabilize and remain productive and abundant. Mm-hmm. We talk about the call to adventure as a...
All right, we're going to get into all of that. Let's address this poll that was meant for the other conversation, but still is relevant. The poll is, will America become a communist country? And the three options are yes, no, or it entirely depends on 2024. And 50% of you said it entirely depends on this election. Zippy said socialists are not communists. They are worse. They think they are not communists. Fair enough. All right, let's just skip ahead to the conversation.
Wines, you're good to see you. Well, this is the discussion for you. So good to see you, Russell. Thanks for agreeing to talk to me today.
It's a great joy to be in your company. Thank you for having me.
So I want to run some ideas by you, and I want you to tell me how they echo for you personally.
Echo? Another echo? No, I'm just kidding. But again, I didn't really have a chance to watch this at all. I watched maybe the first 20 minutes in the background while I was setting everything else up. So M169, you probably are going to be a lot more familiar with this than I am. But as I realized that we had something else, I'm glad that I saw this was out today. Otherwise, I would be scrambling. But again, at no point am I thinking that Russell Brand is, some grifter or anything like that. The point about, the born again thing is that it's becoming a popular thing. And in my opinion, it is going to ruin Christianity. And as Jordan Peterson was saying in the intro is that we do need some type of moral structure. And right now, Christianity is really the only thing that's out there as a package. And the more it gets destroyed, the less useful it's going to be. And I need that to maintain while I build up the secular American moral identity.
and also philosophically. So I think I figured out what the collective unconscious is.
Shout out to Clacko Nuggets in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. It says that a stained glass sport coat. I don't know, but it looks damn fine. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party.
Finally.
Well, I've been thinking about these large language models a lot and about what they do, because they can obviously mimic human thought at the verbal level quite spectacularly. Now, of course, the woke ideologues have done everything they could to muck them up spectacularly right from the beginning, and we're going to pay a big price for that. But there's still something there that's very, very telling about how we think. So let me lay out the idea, and you tell me what you think about it. So what these models do is map the statistical relationship between, you might say, markers. And so imagine that you can tell the difference between a word like,
welcome to the
imagine
party.
a word BINT, which isn't a word, but it's kind
Wait, what?
like, imagine a word BINT, which isn't a word, but it's kind of a plausible non-word. And it's a plausible non-word because the statistical relationship between the letters mimics the likely statistical relationship between letters in a real English word. So it's much more of a word than QNZT.
Okay, so you're just saying that, the word BINT is not a word, but it has the structure of something that we would recognize. So Amongst Nine said, you and I will have to agree to disagree on whether this will destroy Christianity or continue it. I don't think those are mutually exclusive. That's a very important point there. That is a false dichotomy. I don't think that in order for Christianity to be ruined, it has to be, sent off the face of the earth. There's a lot of things that exist in a very ruined state. And so that's kind of what I mean. That I definitely think it will continue. But will it continue as what it is now, what it used to be? I don't think so.
Okay, so now there are statistical regularities between letters that enable us to identify words. And then there are statistical regularities between words in phrases that make sense. And then there are statistical regularities between phrases in sentences and sentences in relationship to one another. And then, say, within paragraphs, and then paragraphs in relationship to one another. And
yeah, so he's just basically saying everything fits into everything fits into a larger subset. And so if you have something like a BINT word that doesn't actually have a meaning, it still can fit into the larger context, and you can give it meaning. I don't know if that's exactly where he's going, but that's where he's at.
The large language models are trained to map all that.
Shout out to ChatGPT.
So what that implies, obviously, is something like any given idea is statistically likely to exist in relationship to a certain set of other ideas and not distal ideas. And so if I throw an idea at you, I'm also throwing a network of associated co-ideas at you at the same time. And then out farther in the penumbra are even more distantly associated ideas. And more creative people are going to be able to leap from the center to the distal ideas. We already know that from studying creativity.
Yep, as we saying, look how fiction is being ruined by the normies. They're going to ruin religion again. Yeah, I think so.
So the large language models map the statistical association between sets of ideas. That's a good way of thinking about it. You can imagine the same thing happens with images. So if you bring to mind the image of a witch, you're much more likely to bring to mind the image of a cauldron and a black cat, for example, and maybe a spider, maybe a pumpkin. So the collective unconscious would be, take a given culture, the collective unconscious would be the statistical association between ideas insofar as that culture has represented the ideas.
I think if I remember correctly, right after he throws all of this, Russell kind of he gets it cleared down a little bit because he's putting a lot, and I'm trying to pay attention to chat and this and that, and I'm missing it. So we'll get there. We'll get there.
And that's mappable mathematically. And so a symbol would be something like it's a set of statistically associated concepts. right? Especially image-laden concepts in particular with regards to symbol. So it's a weight. What the collective unconscious seems to be is the system of weights between concepts through which we see the world. So, and that makes it a real thing. It makes symbols real because a symbol is a network of ideas with a core idea at the center.
Okay, so he's saying that going back to this BINT word, that's not a word, but because we have other words and we have language and we have sentences and we have sentence structure and we have the way that you would use a paragraph, then you can assign a meaning. Again, I don't know if exactly this part is my speculation, but because that exists, that we could, because even though bint isn't a word, we could use that as a new word because it would fit in with the structure that's already there. I believe that is what he's saying, but I'm sorry if he's not. Shout out to Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. So my favorite honorary psychologist and my favorite magical thinker say it ain't so. I actually missed this one and forgot to get back to it. Well, there you go. Thank Modern Day Debate for taking down the Minds Fest video that we were about to watch. That I was totally prepared to talk about and I have not seen this. So we are going in blind. But welcome to the party. All right, M169 seen this so far, and so I'm gonna you and me together. We're gonna figure it out.
So.
Yes, how beautiful. Firstly, I wonder with some of the areas we might, at least it seems to me that I ought address as occurring are the difference between signifiers that are, of course, according to post-structuralist and to much of the work done by within semiotics, arbitrary and potentially universal, natural, or at least practical symbols. I wonder, for example, about the idea that is it a type of language that a barn full of chicks will respond to the silhouette of a bird when it travels above their heads on a wire in one direction, because when traveling from north to south, the silhouette resembles that of a hawk. But when it travels back along the same trajectory, but in reverse, they do not respond because it no longer resembles the silhouette of a hawk. A hawk does not travel in that formation. That is a type of language. There is language.
So even, as Guantek is saying here, basically symbols are just shorthand for big old brain ideas. And the example that he's using is that, even if you're just a chicken, the symbol of the silhouette, depending on the direction that it's even moving, can have different ideas.
Language within nature. This is the first thought.
So you're referring to something. Yeah, okay. So that adds an additional dimension to the
wonderful.
model.
Oh, wonderful, because we're not in enough dimensions already.
So then you might say that there are co-occurring patterns of regularity with biological significance that exist in some real sense outside the merely conceptual. And those are probably marked in the fundamental analysis by death, right? Because one of the other things I've been thinking about is that people ask me questions like, do you think God is real? And a question like that always begs the question for me is like, well, what the hell do you mean real? Like, what makes something real?
That it exists.
And, you could say tangibility, although that's only one dimension of what makes something real. It's like, I think what makes things real I
think love exists. I can't touch love. I can't feel love. I can't smell love, but I very much believe that love exists. I believe that friendship exists. I believe that loyalty exists. I believe that community, the idea of community exists. I mean, all of these things are not tangible, but they are, they're still, what's the word I was just saying? They still exist. We have a reason to believe that they exist. Nick said, I think something is wrong with us atheists have to worry about I think something is wrong when us atheists have to worry that people are messing up the religion. That sounds just crazy, but we respect it even if we don't believe it. Yeah, well, I mean, again, the thing is, my whole thing is, hey, I'm here to replace what we need from Christianity with something even better that gives us all the same stuff, but it brings in more people. But that takes time. I can't just snap my fingers and it's done. This is going to be years, maybe a decade, maybe more. I don't know. That's why, all these throwback things that I've been starting to post, and all through the month of May, I'm going to be throwing or posting throwback things on my community tab. So definitely check that out. But we are so much closer to the beginning than the end. And so I need Christianity to be there until I am in a position to replace it, because I don't want to take it away from anybody, and I don't want people to be existing without that moral guidance. So to get the shrooms out, time to hit all the dimensions at once. There you go. God is physics. Next, see if we could all agree to just say, okay, that's what we need. The mechanical and chemical forces of the universe. We don't know what they are, so we're going to call that God. If we could go there, I'd be a deist today. Shout out to Indie Film. Welcome to the party out from Florida. How's the weather out there? Actually, it's warm. It was like 80 degrees today, so we good. All right.
Although that's only one dimension of what makes something real. It's like, I think what makes things real in the final analysis is probably death. And in the example you used of the silhouette, which is a very famous example with regard to birds, the silhouette traveling in one direction, that signifies death reliably, right? Over a very long span of evolutionary history. And any creature that didn't respond to that silhouette was at a much higher probability of being picked off. So then,
evolution.
One of the things you might note, and this is where the postmodernists got things like dreadfully wrong,
oh dear,
and where the large language models have drifted into insanity. So imagine that there's a statistical relationship between concepts that's okay. So then you might say, well, what gives that statistical relationship reality? And the postmodern types would say, well, it's just arbitrary cultural construction. But it's not, because there are patterns of relationships between events that are part and parcel of the world per se. And
this is him basically just saying nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing happens in a vacuum. It's so common on the left that when they try to argue something, it's just on that fact, as if giving kids puberty blockers doesn't affect anything else. Like, yes, if you have a child that is gender dysphoric and then you give them puberty blockers, then it might help that. But that has a relationship to other things. Tonight, an evolution and creationism aren't mutually exclusive. All right, fair enough. A throwback, fair enough.
And some of those need to be accurately mapped by the conceptual system, or you die. And so I would say the ideas that ring most true to us, that grip us in this sort of archetypal way, are ideas that bear directly on our survival, whether we recognize it or not. They strike a chord within us.
Yeah, well, and this ties directly into what Zippy's saying, that religion does not want you to know what God is. They cannot simplify history and philosophy through dogmatic thinking. They want you to know, or that rather, they want you to accept that you need faith, and the justification is, well, I'm going to go to hell. The same thing that they're talking about with the chicks and the hawk is that, well, death is the motivator here, but it's a false motivation, because we're all going to die anyway, and you don't have any reason to believe that there is anything that would happen to your consciousness, after the fact.
Here's a good example. We'll shift sideways for a minute. Started to understand why. So I'm on a tour right now, We Who Wrestle with God, and it's focusing on biblical stories. I'm trying to understand what they mean and then talk about that, so other people can understand insofar as I'm able to. And one of the striking meta themes of the biblical library is the necessity of sacrifice, right?
Okay.
And so I've been trying to understand, first of all, what it means to sacrifice. It means to give up something that's desirable for something that's more desirable.
I think that's fair. Giving up something that's desirable for something that's more desirable. The problem I see when it comes to dogmatic thinking is that it seems to imply, in the same way that it implies that, oh, you have to follow this religion because otherwise bad things will happen, that you need to sacrifice when you don't actually need to sacrifice. You can just get the good stuff. And as long as you're a moral human being, there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. Whereas religion teaches that if you are, if you just happen to be lucky, well, that's a bad thing. Like you should have to, and maybe not directly, but this idea that that sacrifice is inherently necessary for anything desirable, it's a little scary. So he said Buddhism and much of Eastern systems are more focused on piety through discipline and philosophy. Yep,
it's something like that. It's something higher, and it's higher because it extends over a longer period of time, and it includes more people. And so, like, sacrifice is the basis of community. Well, why? Well, it's all.
Shout out to Brad C. over on X said the thing you sacrifice might not feel the same way. So yeah, that was kind of where my mind was going as well, because we're talking about sacrifice, and you can sacrifice yourself or something for yourself to gain something. But if we're talking about sacrificing somebody else, or sacrificing a child, or sacrificing even a lamb, that gets a little sus. Welcome to the party, Brad.
Obvious, Russell, as far as I can tell. It's like if you're in a communal relationship, which is any relationship, obviously, then you're giving something up that's immediate to you to establish and maintain the relationship, right? So it's a sacrificial gesture. And once you understand that sacrifice is at the basis of community.
I don't like that. See, this is what I don't like about how, even though I respect Jordan Peterson so much, he's working from the point that sacrifice is a good thing, and therefore we must sacrifice in order to have a community. And I just that's backwards thinking. There may be things that must be sacrificed in order for for the greater good of the community. But to say that you can't have a community without sacrificing this, that, or that, rather, that is what does it say, the basis of community? So a sacrificial gesture.
Once you understand that sacrifice is at the basis of community.
Sacrifice is at the basis of community. And I get what he's saying in the sense that there's give and take, that you have to work with others. You can't just do what you want. I get that. But sacrifice is a very strong word. And I don't like, I just don't like that framing. Shout out to Ginger Powers over on Instagram. Said, how much taxation is too much? Any of it. Taxation is bad. Welcome to the party. Zippy said, sacrifice can be quantified as effort to work and help the community. Exactly. So why, are we using such loaded language when we're just talking about effort and work and stuff like that? That's exactly my point. M169 said, I try to follow a path that closely models the philosophy of the first century church, which is very different from today's church. Yep. They wouldn't like you very much, but we'll address that later. So he said, you do have to put effort into a community. Without effort, there is no community.
Bingo.
Why is that? Tell me how sacrifice is the basis of all community is a better message than you do have to put effort in if you want the community. Why is that a better message, or a more easily understood message, or a message that's going to spread wider? It's not. Shout out to Mugen1. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya. Nope, no taxes are fair. In context of the idea of wrestling with God is an interesting idea. It basically entails that although the universe gives you boundaries to work within, our free will and determination can help us push the boundaries back and get the result closer to what we want. Wrestling with God is basically what we're doing every day of our lives if done right. We have a choice and power in all this insanity. And again, I agree with the sentiment. I just don't like the wrestling with God part. How about wrestling with self-actualization? Why? I don't understand why we need to shove so much religious language into this. And then we get to the point where you have somebody like Russell Brand, who's very, the way woke used to mean, very awakened. But he feels like he needs to go into this particular group in order to, check off all the boxes and be the completely right person. And it just rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way. The question is, would Russell Brand, would Nala Ray, would all these people feel like baptism and going to Christianity was the right option if my American identity was available to them and it was a real thing? Maybe. Probably not, though. Probably not, though. But just lay down. Just lay down. Exactly. Brad's like, which God? Yeah. Symbolism. Well, but that's why nobody understands. And that's why everybody makes up their own shit. Because while symbols can be good, if you over-rely on them, then you're not really saying anything. We have to have something real, not necessarily tangible, but something that we can, at least mentally, grab onto along with other people. Again, God is very bad at being a word. When I say God, you have your own manifestation of what that is in your mind. And it's different from everybody else. It is a bad word. Zippy said, sacrifice is something every adult does when they have to make a decision. Why does the word sacrifice scare you? You do it every day. It's not me. I'm right here with you. I'm the one showing you Jordan Peterson. Yeah, great. It's not me, motherfuckers. It's all the fucking atheist leftists who don't get it. It's all of them. You God, then nope, not listening. It's all of them. I know this, but they don't, because you force yourself. It's not that I'm so scared. It's why are you so dependent on using a word that you know scares other people? That is the question. If it's no difference to you and it's a big difference to them, then what the fuck?
Once you understand that sacrifice is at the basis of
community, there's that Christian supremacy. Well, once you understand
unity, the question immediately arises, which is, well, what's the most effective form of sacrifice? And this biblical story,
I'm going to go with child.
Old and New Testament together, is actually an examination of sacrifice per se. It's an attempt to spiral down to the core of what constitutes, well, you might say, the sacrifice that's maximally effective, maximally acceptable to God. But it's something like what sacrifice is by necessity at the core of community. I also don't think there's any difference between that.
Yeah, Guantex, right. How many people we know would sit through a long-winded explanation of Jordan Peterson? So let's just forget about it. Let's just use vague words, and then we don't know anything, and we talk about like we know what we want to talk about. Well, we have no idea what we're saying because we're just using symbols and emojis, and we kind of can't even use words anymore. The reason people can't sit through it is because he's not fucking saying anything very easily that you can grab onto. The alternative is what I'm doing right at this moment, taking his long-winded fucking flowery language and be like, oh, exactly what you did. Exactly what your first thing. What did you say? Your first thing. Basically, symbols are just shorthand for big brain ideas. That is what we do. You're going to tell me that in the same breath, you're going to tell me, oh, people aren't going to sit through long-winded explanations. But we also shouldn't use appropriate language that helps people understand. So how do we get them to understand? They can't understand it with this language, even though you love it so much. And you don't want to use the easy language where they can understand because you are so hell-bent on using sacrifice and God and Spirit and Jesus. What is it that you want? What is it that you want? Just to be right? Or a better world? To understand the universe? To understand what is true? If there is a God, to be close to him? What is it that you actually want? Because to me, it seems like you just want to be right. And I'm just a stupid little atheist doesn't understand. One day you'll get it. Get the fuck out of here.
By the way, I think they're identical concepts because as you mature from, hedonistic, power-mad 2-year-old, what happens is that you integrate
Nick against the world
modes of attention and action that facilitate your longer term survival, but also your inclusion within more and more complex webs of social community. That's all sacrificial.
So Zippy's saying semantics. Yes. What is one of the major two things that I talk about constantly? Semantic obfuscation. That's semantics. Semantics are a big deal. If you, again, fine, they will find a reason to hate. So make it harder. Stop fucking serving your shit up on a platter and then be like, oh, well, I don't know why they don't like it. I'm just using all the words that I know they hate. But they just need Jesus.
Complex webs of social community. That's all sacrificial.
Good God. Now, there's a lot of Jordan Peterson 101. There's a lot of hits running simultaneously here, JP, because we've already touched on the idea of chaos and the necessary inevitable emergence of patterns within chaos. And it seems that you are positing to a degree that this chaos is analogous to perhaps the collective unconscious and some of the patterns that are emerging in AI models, even with the biases evident within them, are
Fine, then stop using it. Then just don't use it. You said effort. If you see that it makes somebody angry and you don't care, then why are you so hell-bent on using language that you know will upset people? Why are you so hell-bent on using language that you know will upset people when you have the skills and ability to do it better? Because you just want to be right. You don't care if people understand. You don't care if things get fixed. You just want to be right.
Indicator of how these patterns emerge within a container. And I suppose to say a container is to indicate that we're acknowledging an absolute. We've moved from the...
Right, Guamtech. So if people don't want to dig deeper, what is going to be more likely to get them to the place where maybe, okay, they've changed their mind and they will dig deeper? Say, okay, well, if you're going to have to dig, well, the ethos of the security and society is acknowledged that in the structures of morale, or, well, I mean, we want to come together and sometimes it's a give and little take. Which one of those is going to get somebody to be like, okay, well, let me hear you out? You act as if I don't understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Because of what you're saying, I'm saying don't do that. If you want to be better, if you don't care, if you just want to look down your nose at people who don't like language that you don't care about, then do that. Fine, I don't give a shit. But what I'm telling you is that as long as you continue to do that, number one, it will continue to push people away from the religion, and number two, it will strengthen the other side. And then people like this, well, not Russell specifically, but people who don't really know, and they're just like, oh, well, I'm definitely not a leftist, and I don't really get what Jordan Peterson's saying. So yeah, I'm a Christian too, even though I don't believe in Jesus, I don't believe in heaven, I don't believe in this, I don't believe in that. But yeah, I'm a Christian. This is a huge uphill battle. Case in point, we have young people upset by ellipses and the thumbs up emoji. Yeah. So let's make it worse, right? Or no, maybe we should try to find a middle ground. Maybe we should try to find a way to express these exact same ideas without pushing people away. No? Oh, yeah. I didn't think so.
This idea of a collective unconscious acknowledging an absolute. We've moved from this idea of a collective unconscious and patterns emerging within chaos into sacrifice, which is obviously another great Jordan Peterson theme. And as you say, perhaps the overarching theme of the Bible. My contribution to this incredible amount of information that you are relaying, it has to do with where might one's intention carry you, in so much as it seems that in this process of maturation and a personal relationship with sacrifice, how that develops and evolves, it seems to me, is when one starts to acknowledge that there is not, when you use the phrase immediately beneficial, that when we're referring to immediacy, we are talking about both spatial and temporal immediacy. And we might have to consider that when dealing with the sublime, as surely the Bible is, that even these categories are called into question.
This is like when the feminists say, well, we just need to teach our boys to stop ARPing girls.
Stupid.
Obviously, I would like that as well, but that's not the world we live in. So unless you can snap your fingers and make everybody 10 times smarter, then that's not an option.
the most basic and taken for granted categories of any temporal creature will have to be challenged. This perhaps helps me to understand how the ultimate sacrifice as rendered in the New Testament, and most I suppose would regard as the defining Christian image, the image of sacrifice, can tackle the complex idea of the
Again, supremacy.
pact that is made by the sacrifice of the man God. Because as I explore and attempt to understand Christianity more deeply,
Shouldn't you do that before you get baptized?
the nature of the triumvirate, the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit, and the nature of this pact is something that I'm mulling over, and I feel that the reason I can't reach resolution is because it's irresoluble. Because I ask that when there is absolute dominion and omnipotence, with whom might a pact be made? And I'm starting to conclude that it must be a kind of koan, that, you know, that all is coming from the same source.
Okay. Yep.
Because otherwise, how can there be a pact?
Well, I can tell you a story about that, and you tell me what you think about it. That's a very good question, because the other.
So if I understand him correctly, he's Russell is just talking about the notion that in a let's just say a secular world, the one being three doesn't make sense. It's either one or it's three, but like obviously understand how the God, Son, and Holy Spirit. I think that's what he's talking about. So it eventually feels like they're saying only Christians can be good people and be accepted. If that's the case, people will lie and be accepted by claiming something they don't actually believe, which will ruin Christianity, which will ruin America. So keep on doing what you're doing, guys. Keep on doing what you're doing. It's showing exactly who hates America. It's showing exactly who. No, I'm just kidding. But and on a serious note, like this, I understand where you guys are coming from. You're acting like you have to explain to me what it's like to be a Christian. I'm only just getting to the point in my life where I've spent more time as an atheist than a Christian. Most of my life, I was a Christian. I get it. You don't. I'm trying to explain something to you from people who you can reach. You can reach. But no, I'm not going to change my words to fix America. To fix America. No thanks. I like my words. You sound like a baby bitch who doesn't care about shit. I like my words. Musk9 said, no, because it's a process of growth and understanding, beginning with a leap of faith, if you will. Fair enough. Context said supremacy entails we wouldn't try to have the conversation. I'm not talking about anybody here. And that's not true at all. Supremacy does not entail that you wouldn't try to have conversations. That is not true at all. That is, I mean, white supremacy. What's the guy who is on Rogan all the time? Daryl, whatever. Are you going to tell me that the KKK members that he talked to weren't supremacists? But they gave him the try, and some of them he turned around, and some of them he didn't. So, no, supremacy does not entail that you are not willing to talk to other people. That just means supremacy means you think you are better. You think you are better than people who get it, because people like me just don't get it. That is what you are saying. Maybe if that's not what you mean, then it's y'all who are saying the wrong words. Brad says, if you need an all-seeing being threaten you in order to be a moral person, you are not moral. Agreed. Zippy said again, I'm not using sacrifice as a... I know that, Zippy. Stop explaining to me what sacrifice means. I know that. I get it. When you said before, it just means work together and effort. I said, I get it. Do you need me to say it again? I get it. We're not talking about me. We are talking, as we always are, about the moral, just people who live in our society, but feel like they need to cozy up to the left because of these fucking words, because of this language. I have to change my words? Oh, no. What happened to effort? What happened to sacrifice? What happened to that? That's the basis of a community, I thought. But you're not willing to sacrifice? Exactly. Exactly. You're full of shit. You're full of shit. You're willing to use the word sacrifice despite the fact that you know that it's going to make people angry, but you're not willing to sacrifice the word sacrifice to make a better world.
Stupid.
Tell you a story about that, and you tell me what you think about it. That's a very good question, because the thing you
Shout out to the Cam Cassie. That's why I use preferred pronouns. Good one, good one, good one. Welcome to the party.
are pointing to too, which is definitely the case, that the nature of the relationship between man and God in the biblical stories is covenantal, it's contractual, and it's relational, right? So there's an insistence that it's all of those. It's like the relationship you have with a being, even though it says explicitly in the biblical stories, in the background, so to speak, that God is beyond all categories of being and non-being. But
okay, we'll just accept that one.
On top of that is overlaid the insistence that, well, insofar as you're concerned, it's still going to be a relationship with something that's a being, or that's the essence of being itself. Okay, so why relationship? Well, there's two questions. Why relationship and why contract? Okay, well, let's think about work first of all, and what it means to work. Obviously, work is a sacrificial enterprise, because when people say they're working, what they mean is they're giving up what they or something within them would rather have happen right now if they had their druthers for some longer term investment, right? So then the question is, well, investment in what? Contract with what?
Yes, exactly. When I like, we're all on the same team here. We know that. I'm an atheist, but I respect Christian values. You guys are Christians, and you respect that despite the fact that I don't believe in what you believe in. Then I hold. We're all on the same team here. We're talking about everybody else. Everybody else. We are already the community. We're already here. We already crossed the finish line. Not the finish line, but and you know, kind of, and what M69 was saying about taking the leap of faith. Hey, we're here doing the same thing. So we're already, and it's not about me. It's not about you individually. It's about society. We live in a society.
So then the question is, well, investment in what? Contract with what? And you could say, well, it's a contract with the community. If I put in, that's what money is. If I put in time and effort, then I'll get something that I can redeem in the future for something, for some specified value. But then that community that you're
so community is built on trade.
Contracting with is a community that's predicated on a certain ethic, because otherwise the contract wouldn't stand. Like if the deal was, well, I can work and I can store something up of value, and then some ravaging mob can just come and take it. Well, that's going to take the spirit out of my work pretty damn quickly.
Mm-hmm. And Zippy, yeah, this is everything. I would say it would be nice if we could separate religious everything and philosophy. Arguing philosophy is more logical, and it doesn't exclude talk about God or the creator if there is one. It's just not dogmatic. And I feel like maybe that's something. I remember one time when I tried to do like some more like epistemological, like actual philosophy stuff. It wasn't there. Maybe it's time to try it again, because maybe it's just that. And I'm not saying this as an atheist supremacist, but similarly to how I had to do the same reading to understand what I understand. If you haven't ventured out beyond one source to really legitimately take as a thing, I'm not saying you haven't read other books, but you not thinking of them as the Bible. If you haven't done that, then maybe it is realistic to understand, no, we have to have Christianity. We have to have this Bible. We have to have this story. Maybe maybe. I don't believe that. I'm willing to grant that if somebody can show evidence that is a reasonable position. But maybe. But if this is like, does anybody disagree with Zippy? I'm saying I'm a self-hating atheist. Aren't we all, brother? Aren't we all? Speaking of facts, thank you, sir.
Well, that's going to take this spirit out of my work pretty damn quickly. And that was probably the fate of most people who ever stored anything of value prior to the emergence of something like a complex sacrificial civilization, where envy, for example, was regarded as off the table. You couldn't just take something that someone had because you wanted it. And so the notion of work itself is the notion of a contract with the future, but the viability of that contract depends on an underlying ethos. Okay, so now let me tell you a story about what that contract, how that contract might be conceptualized. Can you tell me what you think about this?
I thought he was going to tell a story. Well, this is not a story. He said there was. I mean, I'm kind of getting lost. It seems like he's getting into this now, but he's talking about contracts and currency and community and all this stuff. And I'm not. I'm anybody else?
So now let me tell you a story about what.
Okay, maybe he was setting up the story.
That contract, how that contract might be conceptualized. Can you tell me what you think about this? So, I've been studying the story of Abraham.
Exactly what I mean.
He starts out as Abram, by the way, Abram. So he has a different name, which is actually relevant as the story progresses. So Abraham has privilege in modern parlance. He's got rich parents, and everything he needs is right at hand for him. I mean, it begs the question, of course, what is it that you actually need? But
raises the question. Begging the question is something entirely different.
I mean, it begs the question, of course, what is it that you actually need? But what Abram has is kind of like he's got the materialist paradise at hand. There's nothing that he doesn't have at hand whose absence would cause privation. So I would say he's a fully satiated infant. And you can think about that as a notion of utopia. It's the notion of utopia that Dostoevsky criticized, by the way. And what happens to Abraham, he's like 75, and the Spirit of God comes to him. That's how the story lays itself out, and says, look, but
kill your son or you don't love me.
You got to get the hell out of your zone of comfort. You have to leave your father's tent. You have to leave your people. You have to leave everything that's made you comfortable, and you have to journey out into the world. And Abram agrees to this deal. Okay, so as soon as he agrees that he's going to forego his infantile comfort, even though he's like 70 by this time, so he's a bit of a late bloomer, God offers him a deal. This is the covenant. And so I think it's a description of the consequences of the full manifestation of the spirit of adventure. So imagine that there's a spirit within you that calls you to a more profound level of development. It's the spirit that you would encourage if you had any sense, if you had in your children, if you had children. You're launching them into the world. You're saying, follow the spirit of adventure. Okay, so God offers Abraham a deal. He says, if you do this and you make the necessary sacrifices, then you'll live a life that will be a blessing to you. That will happen in a manner that will redound to your reputation. So you'll become known, but in a way that, in the right way to become known, you'll become influential and admirable in the proper manner as a consequence of undertaking the adventure.
I just have to stop really quick, and I'm not going to go down this way because I understand that it's he's making a larger point. But I cannot get past the idea of, if he wanted to give Abram all of this stuff, why didn't he just give it to him?
You'll do that in a way that will establish something permanent. So that's a dynasty with innumerable descendants because of the pattern that you're establishing. And you'll do all of that in a way that's maximally beneficial to everyone else. So the case is being made in that story that there's no difference between the direction that the spirit of adventure orients you and the provision of plenty psychologically, socially, and over the longest possible span of time. And that's the covenant. And so the notion would be that
it's never too late to have an adventure. If you have the willpower, then you are capable of taking home the treasure at the end.
Bingo.
But yeah, we needed that whole thing about covenants and this and that and all that stuff. So I suppose God deals in opportunity and not in the material. Is that a response to my question? Because I get that, but that again raises a question: why? If you could just give all the people that you love everything that they ever wanted, I don't know about you, I would do it. I wouldn't ask them to sacrifice anything because they're good people. I love them.
and this is what is portrayed to Abraham, is that there's no better possible way of conducting yourself psychologically or socially, all things considered, while in this story, than following this voice that calls you out into the world. Now, when Abram does go into the world, all hell breaks loose, right? He encounters famine and tyranny and war, and that calls on him to become increasingly more.
Okay, so let's take a real example. Let's take a real example. So let's say your parents are your parents. They're just who your parents are. You lived your life the way you've lived your life, and everything already is the way that it is. But heaven forbid, this is just a hypothetical example, that your mother gets cancer. How is this relevant to anything? Exactly. But the idea is that if we live a life in such a way where we are learning lessons by how we live, then the people who don't learn those lessons don't get those rewards. It's because of the fact that you learn the lesson that you get the reward. Again, maybe it's just because of a positive only dog trainer, but like it doesn't calculate. It doesn't calculate in any other relational thing. You pay it forward and it works better than demanding sacrifice. Moonjin says lottery winners give money to those close to them, and then and they blame them for ruining their lives because they couldn't control themselves. Right. And so if I was a god, I would know the people who, if I give them all of this stuff, are they going to fuck shit up? Okay, well then you don't get the stuff. If you're going to do good, then okay, yes, I'm going to give you so that you can do good. It seems very simple to me. I don't understand. Couldn't he just deal with greater philosophy? I feel like if you dial back the religion, the greater truth could be more easily seen. It's almost like I was just saying that 10 minutes ago. Completely agreed. Agreed.
And that calls on him to become increasingly more than he is. Every time he has a new field of adventure that reveals itself in front of him, he's called upon to make a sacrifice. He has to change. He has to let go.
But that's already how life works. And so again, fine, you can say that, well, the effort that you have to put in and to achieve something or to get something good, that is God, this, that. But that's already how it is. If you want to get strong, you have to lift weights. That's it. Anyone said giving loved ones everything they ever wanted is the surest way to ruin a child. Yeah, it's right over your head. Never mind. Just forget I said that. You just
has to abandon the parts of him that are no longer appropriate to the new situation. And
no, not ignoring it. Here's the thing. You're not going to give everything to a child because they could ever want, because then they're not going to be able to live a life where they can learn the lessons that they need to learn. Again, you're God. You know all of this stuff. It's not just, I'm going to give them all money and then turn my back away. This is God. You think God's that stupid? Jesus, you guys do not have a lot of faith in your God.
Sacrifice. He has to change. He has to let go. He has to abandon the parts of him that are no longer appropriate to the new situation. And he does that intensely, so intensely that he is eventually rewarded with a new name, which is Abraham instead of Abram. He becomes a new person. It's a good way of thinking about it. So, and then, well, obviously Abraham is called upon.
Was he not happy as Abram? Seems like he was living based on that story, seemed like he was living pretty nicely.
to make an ultimate
I got an extra A in my name.
sacrifice, which is the sacrifice of his son, Isaac. And that's part and parcel of the notion that everything that you have is to be offered up to the thing that's highest.
That's insane. That's insane. Talk about taxation. Everything you have should be offered up to the highest.
What?
That's communism, baby. What are you talking about? Just because you were in power, you deserve everything that I have.
Everything that you have is to be offered up to the thing that's highest that pulls you forward. It's something, and that's what God is. That's part and parcel of the story. It's a definition of what's to be put in the highest place.
So again, I can understand that if what I see as most high is my my ability to reach people with my message, then some of you might call that God's plan or my God would be. You could use that word there, but that's not a good way to express that message. It's just not a good way to express that message. You get it because you're already in with the jargon. Not everybody is you, and a lot of people who are not you want to be in the club, and this is preventing it. And Mutsi9 said, my issue with JVP relating the sacrifice of Isaac's story is he misses a few elements. Yeah, like the fact that you shouldn't be willing to kill your child just because anybody said so. But I'll let her continue. And Mutsi9 says, 1, the culture Abraham grew up in used sacrifice frequently. 2, the point of the story was that God. The point of the story was that God was showing him. 3, was showing I'm not like any other God you've known. I will provide. Should a sacrifice be needed, I won't. It won't be your child.
That's a contract.
I get it.
That's a pretty shitty contract.
I like the mirroring of Abraham's sacrifice in the Old Testament.
Why do we call it Abraham's sacrifice? He got a new name. Why is it not Isaac's sacrifice? Because it sounds nicer.
Like the mirroring of Abraham's sacrifice in the Old Testament and the sacrifice of Christ as the apex event in the New Testament, that there is an inversion of that principle. I enjoy too the idea that the endowment of spirit and the spirit of adventure is the maximal principle of a great father. I enjoy this idea very much as well. And I was...
Shout out to Seabass. What's good? Said if God wants to test you, then he will request you do something difficult. Or, if you're just alive, then in order to live, you have to do difficult things.
Wondering, Jordan, whilst you were speaking about the values that may entail, because a little earlier when you were talking about money being sort of one of the establishing principles for community and the way that values can be maintained and community can be maintained, and you said it's an expression of ethos and a demonstration of ethos. I feel that one of the contemporary arguments that rages that you often find yourself significantly and visibly placed on one side of is the idea that sort of this ethos and these values have become co-opted over time. Now, I know you often talk about...
So, isn't this God making Abraham or Jonah go through a struggle to become a better person? As far as I understand it, it's not about going through a struggle to become a better person. It's about going through a struggle to show your loyalty to this God that's making you struggle. That's it. That's it. Like, y'all are familiar with the book of Job, right? Like this, it's just a whole thing where the devil's like, yo, hey, God, your most loyal dude? Let's fuck with him and see if he's going to curse you. And God's like, okay, let's kill his entire family and everything that he has. And we'll give him new ones. But loving God. It says, if he asks something that's difficult, I will tell him to go to hell. There you go. All right.
Ethos and these values have become co-opted over time. Now, I know you often talk about how sort of that conservatism...
Yes. And what are the transes thinking when they chop off child's genitalia? This is what this is what will be right. This is the good thing. This is how it's supposed to be. You are the same. You are the same. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Placed on one side of is the idea that sort of this ethos and these values have become co-opted over time. Now, I know you often talk about how sort of that conservatism versus progressivism is a necessary cultural tension, and you know that many of your detractors and opponents would easily and definitively use the phrase word patriarchy to describe some of these relationships and what they have culturally endowed, and what perhaps they would argue we as men are oblivious to some of the components that are packed into that. What I've come to query is the impossibility of perhaps the equality that it is stated they crave within that framing, i.e. that something that comes from this, forgive the literalism, Genesis would always have to be expressed in this manner. And
Isaac is an example of a little baby conformist bitch. Well, the government said we got to inject ourselves, so I guess we got to do it. So, okay, either he's a bitch or he wasn't willing to sacrifice. Either way, I don't want to be Isaac.
This crave within that framing, i.e. that something that comes from this, forgive the literalism, Genesis would always have to be expressed in this manner. And to create a paradigm that represented a true expression of the divine feminine, it would have to be a different paradigm altogether. This is interesting to me, bearing in mind what you've said earlier about AI being a sort of a conglomerate, an aggregation that could be mapped onto our understanding of a collective unconscious, i.e. archetypes emerge out of patterns observed over time. But what fascinates me also, because I feel it might be practical, for surely as a theology evolves from the Old Testament into the New Testament, is there a sense, without yielding what territory might be inferred to Islam here, if we were to continue the trajectory to the insisted final prophet?
Oh no, Islam. Well, that would be so horrible because it's so different. It's so different from Christianity.
That what we are offered in Acts, for example, in the immediate era after Christ's death and resurrection, is that the kind of divinity endowed by the second covenant, God's reversal, inversion, and return on Abraham's sacrifice, might become not ubiquitous, but at least accessible to many. That we will perform greater feats than he. That you, my apostles, will perform greater feats. That as he has sent me as his apostle, I send you as my apostles. I read Acts again recently in some easy, accessible, almost slang version of it. In fact, a man who shares your surname, Eugene Peterson's book, The Message. And what I was struck by in this version.
So before he goes to that, Nick, Guantek's saying to Nick, so let's see, what did he say here? Yeah, I said a loving God would never ask you to sacrifice your children. So Gontek said, it's kind of like asking, do you believe in American ideas so much that knowing if you were caught, your family would be put to death? Would you still support America? How is it like that? I don't think it's like that at all. Because like that's part of why we love American ideas, is because there would be no such, that's an oxymoron. Part of American ideals are that there's nothing that you would have to say or support or denounce in order to save the lives of your family. So it's a nonsensical question, and it's precisely why we don't like that ideology, because it forces people to do this kind of shit. So, I mean, theoretically, then I would say, no, I'm not going to support America if they want to kill my fucking family. Would you? You're telling me that if Joe Biden walks up to your house and says, if you really love America, you got to kill your daughter, you're going to do it? You're going to do it. No, you're not. This is ridiculous. This is insanity. And M169 says he's a grown man, as if that changes anything. I thought we were all pro-life here. Is it better to kill a baby or not better to kill a baby? What does this mean?
In some easy, accessible, almost slang version of it. In fact, a man who shares your surname, Eugene Peterson's book, The Message. And what I was struck by in this version of Acts was the vivacity, the lividness and vitality of the book, and how the sense of urgency of Christianity, that it, think of the critique.
Okay, right. So yes, the next test is that the government comes to your house, and if you want to be, because that's what Quamted said, it's just like this. It's just like this. So he was being tested and he passed. So the next test is Biden comes to your home and says you must sacrifice your daughter. Are you going to pass that test? Or are you going to fail? Aren't you an American? This is the argument that y'all are making right now. If Joe Biden came to your house and said that you had to murder your daughter, or you don't love America, you are telling me that you would murder your daughter. If that's true, then I need to call CPS right now. Eddie Villain says, I see a big difference between the stories of Old and New Testament. I think the new is no more sacrifice without and more within. You face the struggle, you suffer the consequences. That I'll agree with. And so if we can see that pattern, then why wouldn't we want something newer than the New Testament? That is even less about what the Old Testament was about. And again, why does it stop at the New Testament? Why does it stop at the Bible? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
The sense of urgency of Christianity, that it, think of the critiques that are often slung in your direction. Conservatism, it stayed. This is a very sort of, and admittedly it's 2,000 years old, but a very...
Okay, so Jesus did everything for you. So because if somebody does something for you, like, I don't know, the illegal immigrants that Joe Biden gave everything to, a new life and putting them up in the hotels, well, if he says you got to kill a child, then I guess that's what it is, right? This is insanity. This is straight up psychopathy. This is what psychopaths think. But, well, it's just Christianity, so, oh well. This is an interesting point. Most think Isaac was a small child. He wasn't. Not saying his age just makes it different. There's just a point. Fair enough. Says there's a big difference between believing in the ideals of America and trusting the government. It was just an example, but it was a bad example because when it comes through that if it were the case that within American ideals that the Most High could come and ask you to sacrifice your child, and you are in the position of saying, okay, either I have to kill my child or I'm an American. I know you would not kill your child. I know that. You know that. So what are we talking about? We are literally, it's 1-to-1, a father sacrificing their child because the highest authority said so. That is insane. That is psychopathic. Zippy said, Christian philosophy is a bit of a circle jerk. Be a better person for God. Via tests and struggle does not always make you a better person. Glares at David. Ron said, so God's perfect word needed revision? I guess so. I guess he didn't really know that we wouldn't be sacrificing humans in 2024. All powerful, but just missed that spot. He wasn't paying attention. He just, he put in sacrifice and he's like, yeah, they'll probably keep that around, right? I agree with that, but mainly because everybody's like, oh, it's a Christian country. Is it though? I don't really think so. Jesus died to absolve man of all sins. Full stop. Okay, well then I'm good. Then we don't have to worry about sin because it's already absolved. So we can go out and murder people all we want, right? I mean, I already murder people all I want, but are way too many of you, again, meaning the general Christian population, say, well, why don't you do this? This thing. I already murder and rape as much as I want to. Goose egg. Nick said, look how much has changed and what people find moral. Yet everyone is trying to defend things we don't find moral just because it's in the Bible.
Bingo.
Dogma. Crazy thing, right? Crazy thing. So Gontex says, can I flip it back on you and say, so you would sacrifice the world to protect one person? Who's sacrificing the world? If you're, no. You said to be an American. So the implication here is that you either kill your daughter or you can't support America. How is protecting how does sacrificing the world come into it? That's a non sequitur. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about a parent trying but again, that's not what was happening. It's not that Abraham was asked to sacrifice his child so that God wouldn't wipe out the world, was it? I mean, if it was, then okay, then that's accurate, and then I can answer that. But I don't think that's what the story was. Was the story that if if Abraham refused to sacrifice Isaac, that he would kill everybody? Because if so, then fucking yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not going to kill my child for any and fine. Then I say no. I'll throw it back to you then. So you would kill your child to save the entire world? And exactly. See how notice that even though it doesn't work, I can still take the question as it was asked. People can't deal in hypotheticals or analogies. They're stupid. But yeah, so that goes back to you, because in the initial thing, unless I'm mistaken, to be willing to sacrifice your highest ideal. I'm not saying which ideal is better. Okay, so let's just get this clear then. What was God saying that if Abraham did not or obviously he didn't, but if he wasn't willing to sacrifice Isaac, what was the punishment for that? Because again, if it's taking out the whole world, then the analogy works. But if in Abraham, at no point was God saying, "I'm going to wipe out the world." I just need to test your loyalty to me, and I need you to do that by killing your son. Otherwise, I'm not going to see you as a loyal follower. Then that's not the same thing as saying, okay. So then, if we can't, I mean, you just made that up then. So this whole thing about sacrificing all of America or sacrificing all of the world, that's not part of the story. And it's a different question. And I mean, I don't know. I would definitely have to think about that. I'm pretty sure, no, I would not sacrifice my child to save all of America. I don't think so, but I'm not a child. I don't know. I can't tell that. My instinct is no. But then again, so let's throw it back to you. Are you telling me that if you knew that all of them, that Joe Biden was going to kill every single American unless you murder your daughter, you're going to do it, Guamtech? That's what you're telling me? Again, I'm not a parent, but that doesn't seem right. And it doesn't seem like you. So that's a direct question to Guamtech. Would you kill your daughter to save everyone else in America? Or would you let all of America be sacrificed? Because that's the question you're asking. So I'm just throwing it back to you.
That think of the critiques that are often slung in your direction. Conservatism, it stayed. This is a very sort of, and admittedly it's 2,000 years old, but a very sort of a vibrant call to arms, an urgent sense that, oh my God, we're living in an atrophying and dying ideology. We must become alive with Christ.
I didn't realize he was going there. All right, my bad.
Atrophying and dying ideology. We must become alive with Christ. We must change the world. And even the accounts that are given in there are accounts of people jailed and on trial. That even though it is literally biblical, they're not. It's very distinct from the Old Testament with its locusts and its deserts and its tribes and its manna. Now it sort of feels overtly and literally political.
You talking about Michaela? I mean, if Jordan Peterson was your dad, I don't know. I mean, I love the dude, but I don't think that would be an easy childhood. Just saying.
So what I'm saying is that somehow, between these two sets of books, and I don't know how
But, well, he's a Christian now. This is Christianity. See, Vass? This is your religion. This is what you want. So Gomtek, to the question of if you could either sacrifice your daughter or sacrifice all of America, he says everybody, every bit of me would fight against the idea. I honestly don't think I would, as much as I want to say I believe in America. I'm not a real one. No, sir, you are a sane human being who doesn't want to kill people, namely your own daughter. There is nothing wrong with not wanting to kill your daughter. There is everything wrong with wanting to kill your daughter. So if that's what it means to be a real one, then I said, shit, me too. Dilly to not being a fucking real psycho. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're saying. Exactly. That's what we're saying. That's your religion. That's your religion. That's you. That's you. What did you think that everybody was going to have when we say, oh, you need Jesus, we got to get religion back? What, you thought everyone was going to think the way that you think? No, homie, what do you think 30,000 denominations are? What do you think all these denominations are? This is what happens when you create the false dichotomy of bad and God. This is what happens. You asked for this, and now you're getting it. Hey, shout out to Unwanted Foe. Welcome to the party. Beating me to the punch. Exactly. How many types of Christians are there? How many variations are all under the umbrella of Christian? Too many. Russell Brand has his own brand of religion, and I see what you did there. But the thing is, you all do. He is no more less Christian or more Christian than you are. And if you say different, then all you're doing is proving this entire time that you've been that it's been Christian supremacy entirely. Okay. So obviously, but that's not an option. Unless it was an option for Abraham, then it's not an option. And that's without question. All right, diving back in.
Overtly and literally political.
We need Jesus.
So what I'm saying is that somehow, like, between these two sets of books, and I don't know how arbitrary that taxonomy is even.
That's what they all say. And so many of them would say, you're full of shit and you don't know what you're talking about. Not a real Christian. That's you. Brad says, I would have to handle some snakes before making such an important decision. Yeah, crazy. One of us at the last count was over 200 variations of Christian religions, which is the correct one. Oh, 200. There's like 30,000 named denominations. And then within, like we talk about, you go into any one of those denominations. You go into any one of those churches within those denominations. Let's just take Baptist. So let's just take only Baptist churches. Of each individual Baptist church, not only do they have a different ethos, but each individual Baptist in each individual church has their own idea of God and Christ and religion and all of these things. Did he know? Maybe. Probably not, though.
Like, between these two sets of books, and I don't know how arbitrary that taxonomy is even, Jordan, obviously it must be an area of your expertise by now, having sort of watched the incredible content you've generated around it. Has there been a significant reversal of charge? And what is that charge? How are we endowed with that charge now? At the point when you have Richard Dawkins saying, I am culturally Christian, are people starting to recognize that there is, that this is
a cheat code? A cheat code? You just say the right words and you part of the club and it happens on both sides. There's just different clubs and different words.
Not just a remnant ideology. This is a living thing that has been discarded. I listened to that Bishop Barron who you had on your show the other day talking about ethereal angels, and I thought, yes, the religion that I am interested in is not a precursor and a parallel to psychotherapy. It is a precursor and parallel to quantum physics, helping me to understand, what do you mean when you say self? Who is this self? What do you mean when you say reality? reality? When you say reality,
Good questions. All right. Now we're getting some real questions. What is reality? What is truth? What is God?
who is this self? What do you mean when you say reality? When you say reality, what are you talking about?
Something very different than anybody else.
And is it possible that reality is something that we conjure here as vessels and conduits of the divine, if we have the capacity to somehow in the moment through practice disavow the strong gravitational, literally, pull of the material?
I think that's true. I don't necessarily think that it has to be within a particular structure, but I absolutely believe that there's some realm of something that has a gravitational pull, as he puts it. Hey, shout out to the big baller unwanted foe with the $10 super chat. Oh my goodness, look at the size of that. Let's give him a nice big one for that. Oh, he's loving it. Thank you. So very much, sir. I really appreciate that. And so does Morty. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you. Unwanted foe. Very much appreciated. Thank you.
The strong gravitational, literally, pull of the material and the unconscious ethos with which we are continually inculcated by the insidious, nihilistic, or albeit glistening culture that attempts to make us all devotees of this new banality.
Well, when Moses disappears to go to be given the 10 Commandments, he leaves his political arm behind, right? Aaron. So there's two forces that lead the lost across the desert. There's the prophetic and the political, and Aaron is the political. And in that part of the story, the prophetic disappears, and the political falls under the sway of something like the immediacy of hedonism. So the Israelites immediately turned to worship of the golden calf, and it's something like money. So a calf.
And here we have the false dichotomy creating that. Well, either you have the love of money and material, or you have the love of Jesus Christ and Yahweh. Maybe. But that's on you to prove to all of us.
Is obviously
Wouldn't you have to first define the word divine and then prove it exists? Yes. If you're being intellectually honest, yes. But when it comes to Christianity, we just throw intellectual honesty out the window and just do what feels nice.
Calf is in the class of livestock, and livestock is bodies at hand to consume.
Oh, it wasn't a golden foot. Man. He said calf isn't a livestock. I was going to make the joke about a golden leg muscle, but I missed it.
Of livestock, and livestock is bodies at hand to consume. It's a form of wealth, obviously. And golden calf is the first level representation of that abstractly, you might say. It's halfway to money, a golden calf, but it's still materialistic. Now,
how is it halfway to money? It is money. It's gold. You ain't gonna get a fight from me, brother. You ain't gonna get a fight from me.
You might say it's halfway to money, a golden calf.
I don't know what that means.
But it's still materialistic. Now,
I don't know what that means. I don't know what halfway to money means.
When the Israelites start to worship the golden calf and become materialistic, they become concerned with.
And if we're saying that they're worshiping this thing and being materialistic anyway, then what is the purpose of differentiating whether they're worshiping money or a particular thing? Brett says Golden Steer is the best steakhouse in Vegas. Check it out. Shout out to Golden Steer.
Immediate hedonistic self-gratification. Okay, and so then, and it isn't only that they're worshiping the golden calf, they're dancing around naked, drunk. It's a pride parade. I mean, and I'm dead serious about that. I'm dead serious about that. Is the political descends into a pride parade as soon as the prophetic disappears. Well, why?
Fair.
Well, because everyone falls under the sway of their dominion of their immature instinct.
Exactly. That's why I'm confused as to why, like, you felt the need to add in. Well, it kind of halfway to money. Like, how does that make your message more well understood?
You know, when someone says, "I want what I want right now," what they're failing to understand is that they've come to a conclusion about what constitutes I. And the I that they're allowing to be constituted is actually the dominion of their instincts. They're reverting to the same sort of behavior that characterizes Abraham before his adventure takes place. It's mere hedonic immediate gratification.
And so hedonic in the same sense in hedonism, we talk about that all the time, that I will say most atheists are leftist hedonists in the sense that exactly what he's talking about, that there is no grounding, there is no principles, there's no values, there's no, it's just what do I want, and whatever feels good is what I should do in this very moment. And that is a narrative, that is an ideology that comes from the government, that as long as you give up all of your freedom, that is what is most high to the government, the ultimate authority, then you will get everything you want. Yeah, you'll get your iPhone, you'll get your EBT, you'll get your this, you'll get your that. This is the dangerous game you play when you start using dogma, because then you are not the only one who can employ dogma. Yeah, it's just doing whatever you want to do, complete disregard for anything besides pleasure.
Now, you might say, if you were progressive, it's like, well, what's wrong with that? And the answer is, well, why don't
everything
you put 42-year-olds out in the forest and see how long they last? And the answer is not very long. And the reason for that is because there's nothing in that realm of instinctual self-gratification that's going to be able to propagate itself communally over any reasonable amount of time.
Right. And so, if Christianity is a great way to teach people why this is not a good mentality, great. But if there are a plurality, and in a few years it will be a majority of people who cannot or will not pick up this ideology, what do? Do you let your country fall? Do you let your the false dichotomy of God or bad? Well, the good people are gonna the good people are still gonna be hedonistic, and they're not gonna believe, but they don't want to be bad people, so they're just gonna glob onto Christianity and widen it even more, and it's not really gonna have anything to do with Jesus Christ or being a good person, or it's just gonna be saying whether or not you're a Christian. Or we come up with an alternative where you get to keep your Christianity, and we throw this at them so that they act like they're Christians, but they don't pretend to be Christians. And we all get along, and it's a utopia. And obviously, I'm being facetious at the end there. But what is a better option? What is a better option? Context said, and that's where the idea of sacrifice is so scary. Do you sacrifice to the God now, or do you sacrifice to the horrors of what's to come if you don't sacrifice? Either way, you have to sacrifice. Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree with the sentiment at all. My earlier point about the word sacrifice is that you can absolutely say this message in a way that doesn't push people away. And if your goal is to get people to understand your message and live how you want them to live, then that is what you have to do.
I mean, that's why we have communal organization, why we make those sacrifices, is because as you mature, you start to understand that mere whim or mere desire, first of all, is a pretty narrow definition of who you are, especially because it changes moment to moment.
And that goes right into what Zibby's saying, that hedonism, it requires a lot of sacrifice. You're sacrificing any value of the future that you could have by investing in yourself and investing time, investing effort, and doing anything. Sacrificing, now you sacrifice, and just like Guantek said, you sacrifice either way. And so if you are not aware of that, then you might be under the impression that as acting in a hedonistic manner, then you're winning because you don't actually have to sacrifice, not realizing that the sacrifice comes later. It's not like there's some IQ thing that like Christians are smarter or atheists are smart. Like there's dumb atheists and there's dumb Christians and there's smart on either side. So it's the whole game is about spreading the message. If you're good at spreading the message, then people will behave the way you want them to behave. If you're bad, then they won't. That's the long and short of it.
Just like gender, apparently, right? It's this shape-shifting.
Right. So exactly. Brad's saying all fellow atheists I follow are so far left.
Hurrah!
Not sure why that is. Not a fan. I will tell you exactly why that is because of the false dichotomy presented, and that either you are a good person or rather you believe in God or you're a bad person. And so people internalize that. And like, well, I mean, I'm a shitty person anyway. And well, you know, and then it turns into, well, I don't care that I'm a shitty person because I can't do anything about it. And that turns into, no, I'm not a shitty person. I'm hurting people and all this, but I'm allowed to do it anyway. Because we've created a false dichotomy where if you're going to have a moral structure, it has to be religion. And people simply, justifiably, don't believe. And so again, the question is, for those people, you either can have them go down the rabbit hole of hedonism, or we can present them with something as an alternative.
It's actually...
There we go. Dilly, Brad. Shout out to that. I mean, I'm doing what I can. Shout out to Zivy over X. CUS, I don't do the crap I did when I was younger because I know better now. I said, shit, me too. But guess what I was when I was younger? A Christian. Guess what I'm not now? A Christian.
Ding. It's actually an a priori decision about what to worship. Like if you're a pagan, for example, and you're polytheistic, for example, all that it means is that it doesn't mean you worship nothing. It means that you identify yourself with your instinctual desires. You define I as whatever desire rules at the moment. That's just a kind of possession, and it's an immature possession, and it can't work because there's nothing in it that's productive. It's all mouth and need and no action and sacrifice.
That's what she said.
And so there's something wrong about it, fundamentally wrong about it.
I agree. There's something fundamentally wrong about it. So if Christianity isn't working to bring these people away from what is fundamentally wrong, our own countrymen, our neighbors, the people who vote in our elections, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. I don't care because they don't like the word that I like.
Something fundamental. That's the land of Peter Pan. Right? The boy who won't grow up, who thinks that maturity is nothing but like power and corruption. That's represented by Captain Hook.
Millennials in a nutshell. I don't want to do adulting. So he said, I'm still living in fear of doing anything. I've learned nothing. Don't live like a Zippy. Gonzax, and I follow the Indian Jesus because he challenges me to convey my ideas in a way that would actually hit home with all walks of life. That's some good brain exercising. Dilly to that. Because you guys forced me to do the same thing, and that's why this is so important. Because there's so few places where that's actually happening. There's so few places where somebody is going to feel comfortable enough to go into an arena where it's like, okay, I have these ideas, but I know that there's somebody else who is very passionate about very different ideas. And I think I'm right, and I believe what I believe, but I don't know what they're going to say, and I don't know where this is going to go. If people are not willing to do that, then we don't move forward. And if we don't move forward, we will fall.
Nothing but like power and corruption. That's represented by Captain Hook. Now, to give the progressives their due, to give the left its due, of course, that patriarchal structure that is predicated on sacrifice can become corrupted, co-opted, gigantic, right? Lumbering, blind, willfully blind. It degenerates in the direction of power always. So this is a good rule of thumb.
I don't even know if he's talking about the church or the wokesters, because it holds true for both.
You can think about this in the confines of your marriage or even your relationship with yourself, right? When the proper integrating spirit isn't at hand and operative.
Okay, the proper integrating spirit. Does somebody have a translation for what the proper integrating spirit means? Is that is he saying the mindset to be willing to sacrifice? Or like, is that where, I think that's what it sounds like. But again, like, I don't know what that means, dude.
When the proper integrating spirit isn't at hand and operative, then the relationship degenerates in the direction of power.
See, exactly. You don't get it either. That's absolutely not what he's saying. That's absolutely not what he's saying. He said your relationship with yourself. Nick said, recent posts have proposed convoluted theories accounting for why atheists score higher on IQ tests than religious people. There is a much simpler explanation. Like a lot of correlations to the types, it's probably less exciting than it appears. I would say so. I wouldn't guess that there is a statistically significant, I mean, maybe there is, but I wouldn't think that there's a statistically, especially today. Maybe if we talked 15 years ago, maybe, just because of the type of person you would have to be an atheist versus the type of person you have to be to, like, Christian was just default. So today, maybe I wouldn't think that, but makes sense. So the balancing of the ego and the shadow. Okay, all right, and maybe the ego, super ego too. Okay, fair enough. Again, like, if you get it, then why can't I get it? Say, in a way, we all get it. Next, that atheists are probably more intelligent than religious people because they benefit from many social conditions that happen to be correlated with loss of religious belief. Possibly, yeah. Makes sense. But again, I still wouldn't put any, I wouldn't, like, if you, if I was put in a situation where, let's say I knew two things about a person. They are, one's an atheist and one's a believer, and then one's a business owner and one, serves tables or something. Doesn't mean anything about their intelligence, but I would choose the business owner having a higher IQ just based on the fact that is more telling than whether you're an atheist or a believer, because the insidious nature of dogma is that it doesn't have any correlation to IQ, and the smartest people can be dogmatic, and we see that a lot. Zebby said Western religious philosophy is a dead end to personal growth. Maybe. I don't think so. No, no. I think it has so much value. It absolutely does. It's not. I don't think it is a dead end to personal growth. I think the religious philosophy being in this idea of sacrifice. I think that is something that can help personal growth. It's just not the only thing. What? Who's we? You and your... Okay. Nick said, when one looks at this phenomenon from the point of view of comparisons between countries, it's not hard to figure out possible reasons that more intelligent countries have more atheists. So just like what? You're pulling out a thread. Say what you got to say. So, but you stop thinking. While you have greater stability in life, but as a human, you stop understanding and theorizing. You leave more things up to the church or God. And again, I think that is possible, but there's also the other side of that where people don't care about theorizing. They just care about what feels good. So again,
you start to use force. You exchange angry words with your wife and you attempt to force her to adopt the point of view that you think is appropriate. But the fact that happens continually does not indicate that that's the basis of the relationship. right? It's not, is power the basis of the relationship? Well, the
Power. All right, so let's see what Nick's got here for us. So we'll just look at it is called Average Intelligence Predicts Atheism Rates Across 137 Nations. Boom, 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 boom. Is this too big? No, okay. Evidence is reviewed pointing a negative relationship between intelligence and religious belief in the United States and Europe. It is shown that intelligence, measured as a psychometric G, is negatively related towards religious belief. We also examine whether this negative relationship between intelligence and religious belief is present between nations. We find that in the sample of 137 countries, the correlation between national IQ and disbelief in God is 0.6. That's not small. That is not small. Let's just see what we got from the conclusion. Conclusion. Am I stupid? Okay, maybe it's discussion. Okay. The results raised 4 points of interest. First, the hypothesis with which we began this study was that there was a negative correlation between IQ and religious belief. We have reviewed considerable evidence for this negative relationship among individuals in the United States and Europe and have added a new data set confirming this. Second, we have shown that the negative relationship between intelligence and religious belief is a difference in psychometric G. I don't really know what that means. But third, we have extended this hypothesis to an examination of whether a negative correlation between IQ and religious belief is present between countries. Using data from 137, we found the correlation of 0.6. And, correlations only go to 1. So 0.6 is more than half. Although the measure used across was disbelief rather than belief in God, we believe it can reasonably assume that disbelief in God is negatively correlated with belief in God. Yeah, I would assume. And so we conclude that the negative correlation between IQ and religious belief, meaning the higher the IQ, the less religious belief, that has been found in numerous studies within nations, also presents between nations. So, I mean, let's just go down this list here. I'm just going to show it any better? No. So Afghanistan, the average IQ was 84. And the percentage of, we'll say atheist percentage was 0.5%. So then if we go to the U.S., let's say America or U.S. Am I stupid? It's not in you. And it's not, what? Oh, is there another? Go to the United States. So 98 and 10%. So then if we look at the highest number, which country has the highest number, highest IQ? So we had Austria, high IQ, high rate of atheists. 99, high IQ, even higher rate of atheists. 91, oh, small. 93, super big. So it does seem, again, it seems like the correlation is there, but correlation is not causation. And I think in today's world, that is, I wouldn't use that as something to say, well, atheists are smarter than religious people. Where were we? Zippy said personal growth is a bad word. I meant how one seeks more information about the world, i.e. science and nature. So, I mean, yeah, that definitely will affect that. And as we just saw with the numbers, there's definitely some kind of correlation. But I don't know if it's... I don't know. I know some dumbass atheists, and I know some smart Christians. So, Guamtech said to Seabass, have you heard that the one thing a limitless being is... A limitless being is limitation itself. Maybe God needs us to understand what he can do within a set of set limitations. Our intelligence is a gift, not a curse. There you go. Next, copying from a thing that is explaining why atheists tend to show higher intelligence. Yep. Brad's heading out. Thank you for watching, brother. You have a good one. Not the Golden Calves, the Golden Knights. M169. So when you have people operating at the extreme ends, i.e. do what feels good on the one end, and it's all in God's hands on the other end, is where you find trouble. Neither is good. I think we can agree on that. Hey, we got Dylan Soup in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. And it says, for more than a millennia, scholars have noticed a curious correlation. Atheists tend to be more religious than, more intelligent than religious people. Maybe Zippy's right. Maybe Zippy's right. I got piss.
The fact that that happens continually does not indicate that that's the basis of the relationship. Right? It's not, is power the basis of the relationship? Well, the progressives obviously say yes.
Yup.
They say there's nothing other than power. That's what the bloody postmodernists concluded in the 1970s.
Stay right there.
And if it's not power, what is it? Well, it's the spirit of voluntary self-sacrifice. That's the antithesis of power. That's clearly the antithesis of power. And then you mentioned,
like with Prince Andrew. Remember with Prince Andrew and the Epstein shit? The antithesis of power is going on whatever it was, Barbara Walters and giving that interview.
I'll just add one thing, because you mentioned this call that you saw in Acts, which is Christ's insistence that those he leaves behind will do works greater than his. This is also where I see the insipid element of Protestantism in particular, although not only Protestantism, that says, well, all you have to do is say, Lord, Lord, and you'll be saved, right? All you have to do is claim belief in the Christ who's already redeemed us, and then, now you're in the kingdom of heaven.
So are we saying they're not real Christians, or what's the line on that one? Oh, come on. I ran over the mic thing. Oh, yeah. See, now we're getting more Christian supremacy. I have the right ideas about the universe, and you have the wrong ideas about the universe. I have it right. I have a real relationship with the real God. You just, talk to the sky and think you're right about things. Dogma. And Einstein believed in the God of Spinoza. He believed in a deistic God, but you're too stupid to know the difference.
And that isn't what the biblical text indicates. It indicates that,
like we just literally brought up a fucking study that said across 137 countries, atheists are smarter. But okay. Again, me.
those who are left in the aftermath of the resurrection.
Go ahead and try to act like you're smart.
Will be called upon to do greater things than Christ himself, which is a hell of a call given the nature of his sacrifice, right? This is no joke. And what we're called upon to do is to participate in that process, right? Fully, or else, and seriously, or else. And I can feel, everybody can feel that nipping at the edges, including people like Richard Dawkins.
Yeah, the person you spend 15 hours a week watching? Yeah, that guy. Did I know? If I'm not intelligent and you spend 15 hours a week watching me, what the fuck does that make you? Oops.
Dawkins.
I may say that when you reach immediately for pride as your example of hedonism, you do yourself no favors, in my humble opinion, sir, because you could just as easily use an example of hedonism and indulgence that doesn't have such overt and explicit connotations when it comes to a particular expression of human sexuality.
Bingo.
Exactly. Shout out to Russell Brand.
That's just one point. Let me go on for ages, if you don't mind. Now, I am aware, of course, I've lived hedonistically. I've been a drug addict. I've lived.
I said, shit. Me too. Dilly dilly.
Indulgently for long periods of time. So I understand the nature of that power and in practice how it may as well be a god, and how you conceptualize that could be pantheistically. You could see it as Aphrodite or as Venus. You could see yourself as being devoured by Cupid, and certainly by Eros, and making yourself the subject of such high humors.
Priapus, man. Priapus.
Priapus, indeed. indeed. But I saw some things in what you were saying that struck me as important, that when you were saying that, of course, when we default to making the self our deity, the sovereign being that which is currently charged, whichever instinct is at the wheel, whichever instinct is in the driving seat, that will become.
What are we doing here, bro? What are you doing? What are you doing? That's you, bro. Yeah. Ha! So smart and spend so much time listening to a dumb atheist. Oh man. Oh god.
The is at the wheel, whichever instinct is in the driving seat, that will become sovereign at that moment. If you have no recourse against that, if you have no principle, if you have no path, if you have no Tao, if you have no Christ, if you have no way of breathing and living God into being, then you will default to the instincts in conjunction with cultural influence. That
Yes. Take out the word God there, and you are spot on 100%. Now, I'll give him even more credit because right before this, he said you can use this as a god or that as a god or that as a god. So he is hedging and giving credence to the idea that God is bad at being a word. So I'm using it in this context. So this is not nearly as bad as just saying it. This is infinitely better than whatever Jordan Peterson has said so far. I'm gonna give him to him. So let's go back to what he was saying.
Also, that will be the purpose, indeed. But this is you were saying that, of course, when we default to making the self our deity, the sovereign being that which is currently charged, whichever instinct is at the wheel, whichever instinct is in the driving seat, that will become sovereign at that moment. If you
Right. So that will be, and again, he could have said that can become your God, but he didn't because he doesn't need to. And the message is better if you just say sovereign.
You have no recourse against that. If you have no principle, if you have no path, if you have no Tao, if you have no Christ, if you have no way of breathing and
so I'm more credit than I even gave him. So he's saying Christ or all of these other things. Christ or the Da or whatever it is there. Listen to it again.
If you have at that moment, if you have no recourse
against
that, if you have no principle, if you have no path, if you have no.
So there are many different ways to have a guiding force. And as long as you think that there's only one, you are guaranteed to fail. You are guaranteed to fail. You can think you're right about everything, but you will fail. Don't say I didn't warn you, Seabass.
At that moment, if you have no recourse against that, if you have no principle, if you have no path, if you have no Tao, if you have no Christ, if you have no way of breathing and living God into being, then you will default to the instincts in conjunction with cultural influence. Those will be the two poles that will generate patterns as surely as if they were magnets on iron filing.
That is the dichotomy. One of those or none of those. One of those or none of those. That is the dichotomy, not God or bad. That is the false dichotomy. He gets it.
That will generate patterns as surely as if they were magnets on iron filings. And for there to be any charge at all, there must be polarity. This refusal of the call, the inability to accept maturation, the inability to throw off infancy and to accept the chalice, to accept the grail, to receive the wound, to know what you must do. There is a tension in this for me in the maintenance of the necessary innocence that Christ himself insists we must find. And it seems that when you said for a moment, and I'd love your take on this as well as everything that I'm saying, that the self is amorphous, the self is an event, it is not in stasis, the self will be discovered and will evolve in relationship, then indeed we do.
So you do want Christianity in America to fail. Gotcha. Mr. Nine said he has the something to get baptized. Looks like he's chosen a path for himself. Absolutely. And again, I in no way want to take Christianity away from anybody who thinks that is their right path. I just don't want any of them to say that it is the only path. Yeah, so it looks like he decided to get baptized. Looks like he's chosen the path for himself. Perfect. Perfect. I know. That's what Christianity is, friend. I mean, I know you're late to the party, but that's what Christianity is. People making up their own shit and using the same words. That's what it is. It used to be a demarcation of somebody who had a specific relationship with what they believed was Jesus Christ. Now, it is this. Words do, that is not semantic obfuscation. That is the natural evolution of language. Language does change. Language is supposed to change. But the semantic obfuscation we talk about in the linguistic creep is an outside force that's purposely trying to change the word's form and meaning. But I always go back to literally. The word literally used to mean literally. And then people used it enough when they meant figuratively. It's literally the worst day of my life. That they changed the definition in the dictionary from it only being literary and figuratively being the opposite to literally meaning not literally. Words evolve. And that's what Christianity did. It evolved into this. This is what I keep telling you guys. But I'm so stupid. I don't know. Nick says, just to be clear, I don't think anyone here is not intelligent. To the contrary, I think you're all highly intelligent. That's why you're here. Well, I don't know why Seabass is here. Apparently, I'm stupid, and he's watching us stupid guys. I don't know, but for everybody else, agreed. Well, they said, God, I love this conversation. It's like seeing intellectuality meet spirituality and come to a constant agreement that both are needed to have the best outcome. The balance of the two are key. The balance of the two are key. And see, this is the beauty. This is the beauty. Yeah. No, Guantek, I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that. That is the whole point. So instead of saying something that I agree with, but using words that you know will trigger me, you just said it a different way. And I didn't even notice, and I agreed, and we could have moved on. And if you hadn't said it, beautiful, beautiful. Shout out to Guantek. This is a man who wants to fix America. This is a man who cares about spirituality. This is a man who actually wants things to be better. Okay. Yeah, but I'm a loser. Okay. Shout out to Guantek hitting the nail on the goddamn head.
Covered and will evolve in relationship, then indeed we do lend some credence to those who say these two categories of maleness and femaleness, or man and woman, do not suit me. Now, no doubt these ideas, like all ideas, race, distinction, nationality, commerce, have been lent further charge by, I would say, powerful sets that seek to govern and control consciousness itself, that see that as the ultimate terrain, that require, for the perpetuation of their control, the continual flinging of rocks into that pool to prevent something glorious coalescing there, some new unity.
Some new unity? You mean like people who are already living as Christ would want people to live, but just have slightly different beliefs? Crazy. So Guamsec, what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to star that comment and not the notice religion isn't something I listed as what is needed. Let's see if I even remember why. Let's see how effective it is to be deliberate with your words and be conscious of your audience. Let's see if I even remember why I started that. Let's see. I don't think I will. I'll be honest with you if I do, but I don't think I will. Zibi said, but it's not spirituality as a, but it's not spiritual, but is not spiritually as bad a word as sacrifice. Since if people will hate one word, they will hate the other. I mean, it's definitely a less well-defined word, but it's not as easily replaced. And so I take what you mean, and I definitely wish we had a better word for spirituality, but we kind of don't, which is exactly what I'm doing here. Whereas we do have better words for sacrifice in the context that we're talking. So you're right, but I mean, I can only do so much. And coming up with a word that's better than spirituality is on the list. I'm working on it. So you said there is no race but the human race as far as humans go. That's what the globalists say. Just kidding.
And what I would offer is this, that surely the synthesis that we're requiring out of this thesis, antithesis war that we're plainly still in is the ability to acknowledge that there must be some kind of fluidity. There must be some kind of freedom. There must be some kind of acceptance that tradition cannot become a rod to steer, control, or prod others.
Right. And so we can, and when it comes to the trans stuff, we can just accept that, our ideas of what a man and a woman are different and looser, but that doesn't mean the biological reality of male and female don't exist. In the same way that we can talk about, spirituality, hopefully get a better word as we learn more about this. Yeah, it's definitely vague enough for it to fall into that category, but it's just what we have. And so it's not even that sacrifice has too many negative connotations. It's just there's so many better words to use in that context. But I'm nitpicking there because this is, yes, I agree with this, but again, I just don't have a better word than spirituality. And so yeah, in both cases, it's the same shit. Like everything that you hate about the trans ideology, the gender bender stuff, you're doing exactly the same shit, just in a different way. And if you don't realize how, then you need to sit down and think about it. Because I talk about it nonstop.
A rod to steer, control, or prod others. That our religious faith, that our spirituality, that our morality and our ethics must be for the marshalling of our own instincts and designs and desire for power. And you're right, and I always love it, Jordan, when you return it to how are you behaving in your marriage? How are you behaving in yourself? I was thinking about how do I behave in my marriage? With my wife, how often do I tend towards power in irritability, leaning arrogantly into whatever sets of abilities I'll claim for myself in?
Nah, we on a soft guy era, bro. You gotta take it easy.
Desperation, and God knows I spend significant time there. But because both you and I tend to, as you laid out earlier in our conversation, move from the micro to the macro, to march gladly out to the penumbra to see what might be found there, it leaves us with a kind of a duty to demonstrate in our conduct that quality of joy and open-heartedness, that quality of good faith, and I feel that perhaps the next marker of our progression might be when we can
get rid of a necessary reliance on religion and let it be a privilege or a benefit to the people who want it, and other people don't need it. That would work for me. Nick says, I'm totally with you, Guantech. I want to have my thoughts challenged so I can re-examine them and see if my view changes. That's what smart people do.
I feel that perhaps the next marker of our progression might be when we can say, well, what is it that is of value in these ideas that are emerging out of post-structuralism? The sort of this willingness to cast out even nature. Even the body I'm born in isn't me. Nature itself isn't real. To hell with the sun. To hell with Jesus. To hell even with my own chromosomes. Neither the crucifix or the Y are of value in the final analysis. And because I've lived there a while, because I've lived continually in indulgence, because I have been so many times humbled and my humbling continues yet, what it leaves me with is that there is something, obviously there is something in what you have brought into our culture that people were looking for and needed. And I value it and I appreciate it. That's why I apologize when I'm late. You know, tidy your room, man. Arrive on time.
I don't know. That was funny as hell. But let's rate that. Let's rate that Jordan Peterson impression.
That's why I apologize when I'm late. You know.
All right, are you listening? This is Russell Brand's Jordan Peterson impression. Let's see.
Tidy your room, man.
Hey, man.
Arrive on time. Stand up straight. You know, like,
there you go.
But there is also something that I am. Before I was an Ouroboros, consuming my own self, and now I am more porous, looking for ways to be open to solution. And you know, and I feel there is something we have to deliver. I think that there is something that we have to deliver, and I think the fissures and fractures are emerging now. The possibility exists now for even say your most vehement and vocal detractors to recognize in you what you have brought to the conversation that is true, and for us to recognize.
Well, it's like, okay, no, I can't. I used to listen to him more, and I could get there. Zimmy says 7. All right. Yeah. Yep. That little, hey, man, you got to clean up your room, okay? It's like, no, it's not like that.
What they have been saying that is accurate, that is correct, that is worthy of being heard. And I would say that sort of if you...
an interesting concept. What did he say? What is
brought to the conversation that is true. And for us to recognize what they have been saying that is accurate.
What they've been saying that's accurate. What they've been saying that's true. Does that even matter to you? Because if not, this is a non-starter. If you don't care about reality, if you don't care about truth, and you just want what you want, then again, you and the leftists will have a great time.
That is correct, that is worthy of being heard.
Worthy of being heard.
And I would say that sort of if you just casually, maybe out of habit, use pride as the example, that, you know, instead of the many heterosexual and normative ways that people are equally indulgent and sort of lost and adrift, and I know those worlds because I've lived there, then I think that we're not affording ourselves a pathway through this that would be beneficial.
Okay, so I'm going to... You asked really, I think, 2 fundamental questions there. One had to do with the nature of authority and force, and the other had to do with fluidity. Oh yeah, there was a third one, which is what did the postmodernists bring to the table? Let's start with that.
I have not seen that. If someone wants to get a link.
Well, here's one thing they got right. We see the world through a story. That's true. That's revolutionary, that truth. Right. And I think the science now points extremely strongly in that direction.
Which direction? What are we talking about? The way that he speaks, it's of course very interesting, but it's so stream of consciousness that it's like first you're talking about this, and because of the way that he talks about things, again with the flowery language, and it's really hard to just, what are you talking about, man?
That's true.
So
we see bring to the table. Let's start with that.
Okay, so what do the postmodernists bring to the table?
Well, here's one thing they got right. We see the world through a story.
Okay, we see the world through a story. Fair enough.
That's true. That's revolutionary, that truth. Right? And I think the science now points extremely strongly in that direction. The AI systems are trained in accordance with that notion. All the great psychologists of perception that I've studied and talked to have concluded the same thing. We see the world through a story. The description of the structure that we see the world through is a story. And we have to weight our perceptions. That goes back to that collective unconscious idea that we started with, is that we see the literal things we see. Our perceptions themselves are a function of that weighting process. They're a consequence of a narrative process. And so the postmodernists got that right. And that's why we have a culture.
That's pretty much exactly where I was going. Like, yeah. It's revolutionary if you read one book it's revolutionary if you have one authority, the government. But other than that, I don't know if I really if I really agree. Shout out to Guamtech here. I don't know what this is, and I mean, I'm assuming that you wouldn't send me something that's going to get me in trouble. So let's see what we got.
You're a black, trans, height-challenged, vegan, disabled, ambidextrous, peanut allergy-ridden, mentally challenged person. I'm Dr. Jordan B. Peterson.
Oh, this is the guy from Lady Ballers. Shout out. Y'all remember him? He was the short guy.
And this is my masterclass. Cut! It's like, why in the fuck are we using the word master? It's like, no! It's like, really? It's like, it's comical. We're using outdated slavery terms. Really? It's like, I'm triggered. What about the people of color in here that are damn triggered? Life really is not about personal responsibility or starting a family or working hard. Move back, bucko, 6 feet. COVID is still a thing.
When was this from? 4 months ago.
No.
All right.
It's about how many bloody pronouns you have. Like, that's it. Dead ass. Mm-hmm.
Dead ass.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, see there,
Yes,
sir.
yes,
Yes, see there, sir. You feeling triggered? You feeling safe? I'll be helping people master the craft of judging people by their skin color, not by their character. You know, Robin DiAngelo, she once said, be less white. Bloody amazing what Martin Luther King did.
Bloody amazing.
Know, really like far-right Nazi propaganda, you know. Well, I have a dream too. It's like, I have a dream white people will just sit down and shut up. I will teach you how to be more inclusive, even to the pedophiles. Excuse me, the MAPs, or minor attracted persons. They should have a seat at the table too. Might be the kids' table, but
Should they though? Oh shit, I messed everything up. Oh god,
about all the 4,000 MAPs, or minor attracted persons. They should have a seat at the table too.
Do they though? There we go.
Might be the kids' table, but let them sit down, let them eat. I'll be teaching you about all the 4,969 genders. Strap in. Like, these ideas have been living rent-free in my head for a long time. I'll be teaching you things from my new book, Beyond Teaching Straight White Males They Pieces of Absolute Shit.
All right. We get the point here. One more thing I wanted to show you guys. If you haven't seen, shout out to Seamus of Freedom Tunes. This was a video from this week.
Did you know 95% of kids with gender dysphoria grow out of it if they're allowed to go through puberty? The fact that this has been withheld from us is the greatest scandal of our time. You heard that right. When you don't put a trans child on puberty blockers and then hormones, 95% of the time they become cis and avoid taking hormones, having their genitals surgically altered, and a significantly higher suicide rate. This is trans erasure. That's right. Puberty is erasing thousands of transgender children every single year. By allowing natural hormone changes to occur, their mental state evens out and they become comfortable in their own body. In other words, genocide. And it gets even worse. Not only are 95% of trans people erased by puberty, but that only includes children who knew they were trans. What about all of the people who were never put on puberty blockers simply because they were unaware they wanted them? Now, some say preteens are too young to consent to puberty blockers, but then aren't they too young to consent to puberty? In the same way that they're not old enough to consent to being sober, or how they're too young to consent to not seeing porn, puberty is an act of genocide because it erases trans people from existence.
Forcing them, because a Republican lawmaker needed it to get elected, to go through that puberty that to me is genocide.
That's right.
It's based on a real thing.
Genocide is when you develop the ability to spread your genes. This is well documented, as the Nazis genocided the Jews by injecting them with fertility-boosting drugs, and the Turks genocided the Armenians by encouraging them to have more children. Slavery is when you pay people, and lobotomies boost your IQ. As bleak as this all might seem, there's hope. We
There
can
is
save
hope.
these children from genocide by
All we have to do
ensuring
is
they're
train them.
sterilized as early as possible. After all, if children can't consent to puberty, they can't consent to the brain patterns that make them not want to be trans.
Oh, I thought he was going to go full bore. It's like they can't consent. You know.
We need to liberate them from all of it. So, support measures that allow every minor who asks for chemicals to be able to have them. If you don't, the trans movement will all but disappear.
Oh no! Oh no!
Hurrah!
It is all haram! Haram! All right, let's dive back in here, guys. If you'd like to keep the party raging, you know how
Literal
to
things we
do
see,
it.
our perceptions themselves are a function of that waiting process. They're a consequence of a narrative process. And so the postmodernists got that right. And that's why we have a culture war in part, because we're trying to work something out that's very deep. We see the world through a story. Is the story one of power and tyranny? Well, the answer to that is, to a large degree, unfortunately, but not fundamentally. And that's where the postmodern lefties go so terribly wrong, because their insistence is that the world is a battleground of power. And there isn't a more dangerous conclusion than that you can possibly draw than that. Now, you still have to give the devil his due. So I'm going to consider briefly the story of Moses. Okay, you talked about the rod of authority, right? It's to be used sparingly. Well, Moses is the archetypal leader and the main figure in the Old Testament, arguably speaking. And he has the flaws of the leader, even the prophetic leader. And the flaw is the proclivity to default to power. And he does that quite regularly. In some of Moses' actions are the kinds of consequences and motivations that someone like Dawkins would point to and say, a God who would produce a motivation that evil is not a God that I'm willing to abide by. Now, he says at the same time that he is a cultural Christian. So the situation is complex and people are starting to wake up to that fact. But Moses, his pattern of failure, his Achilles heel, is to use power when he's called upon to use invitation. And this is actually fatal in the final analysis. So in Numbers, which is where the story of Exodus basically concludes, Moses has shepherded his people through the desert, which is where you end up with when your tyranny crumbles, right? You end up in the desert, which is why people don't like to let go of their presuppositions. Anyways, he's shepherded through the desert basically for 3 generations, and they're on the border of the promised land. And the Israelites run yet again out of water. And
Did they not understand East and West? Genuine question. They didn't understand the I guess they didn't at that time. Okay, just curious.
they prevail upon Moses to intercede with God to provide water. And God tells Moses, there's some rocks nearby. You go tell those rocks to deliver the water. You go speak to those rocks properly, and they'll deliver the water that will save your people. And Moses goes to the rocks, and he hits the rocks.
Smoking that bush!
Twice, not once, but twice with his staff. Now this staff, this is the rod of Asclepius. This is the flag you plant when you establish new territory. This is the liana or vine that connects heaven and earth. It's the staff.
I can't,
that defeats
guys.
The staff of.
Guys, I can't. He's not saying anything. I can't. I'm trying so hard. He's not saying anything. When's the end of the? Okay, so we got about a minute and a half in this section. If he can pull it together, then maybe. But I can't do this.
Or vine that connects heaven and earth. It's the staff that defeats the staff of the court magicians. It's the staff that turns
He's saying a lot of words.
into the serpent that eats all the other serpents. This is a major league staff, right? It's the authority of Moses. And he uses authority when he's called upon to use the logos. That's his sin.
Projection! Is it me who says I know whether or not a God exists, or is it you?
And the consequence of that is dire. Aaron, so the political arm, dies, And Moses is forbidden from entering the promised land. And so what's the rule there? The rule is to the patriarch, let's say, the rule is do not use force when you could use invitation.
Really? So that whole fucking thing could be summarized, and you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. I'm telling you, I do very much respect this man. But this is a huge issue. And maybe there, not everybody is for everybody. That's fine. If he is, not on the Daily Wire trying to get to the average person who, claims that they're Christian because that's what everybody does, and they're trying to understand better, this ain't it. If you're already, really deep into religion and then you like this type of, I think it works, but I don't know how many new people you're reaching like this. And maybe it's just me, but I feel like this aspect of like, what? I feel like he used to be a lot more concise. And this just is not very concise. Not very concise. I mean, for real, it's like you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. He talked for 4 straight minutes. 4 straight minutes. One sentence. Catch more flies with honey than vinegar. That's all he's saying. Shout out to Guam Tech. Said my Morty destruction dance sense is tingling. Feed him before he destroys us. Oh, yummy, yummy, yummy. I do think he has to poop. So either way, we can't stay too much longer. But everybody say thank you to Guam Tech. We'll keep rolling.
The rule is do not use force when you could use invitation. Don't fall prey to that temptation. Now,
not to mention that we already went over this same thing about being positive versus being negative. So
the left looks at the patriarchy and says nothing but force. It's like, wait a minute, guys. Nothing but. That's a bit too extreme a claim. You mean nothing but? It's like, okay, why the hell are your lights on? Look around you. You think all of that's a consequence of force? Do you think that's all of that productivity, all of that life more abundant, all of that material wealth? You think that's a consequence of nothing but force? You think your marriage is nothing but force? You think your family is nothing but force?
Who's what? Who thinks marriage is nothing and family is nothing but force? Who's saying these things?
More abundant, all of that material wealth. You think that's a consequence of nothing but force?
Who are you?
You think your
about?
marriage is nothing but force? You think your family is nothing but force? You think your community, your friends, all business relationships, that's nothing but power, is it? And why am I supposed to believe that you're not saying that just to justify your own use of power?
I'm going to ask you the same thing. One thing said, I feel like JVP used to help Christians be able to talk to atheists. Now, I think it's the complete opposite. Now he's using bigger ideas to help Christians not just be strictly dogmatic. I'm going to have to take your word for it because I'm listening. It's just not making a lot of sense. Wanted foes are the people that claim the patriarchy are the problem. Yep. What if the truth isn't Jesus Christ? Then everything about my life will be exactly the same. How about you? Everything is forced to the leftists. Is that what he's saying?
And why am I supposed to believe that you're not saying that just to justify your own use of power? Because that's how the radicals, that's how they operate. As
Good catch. As
far as I can tell, it's like, well, the world's just a battleground of power. And the only thing important is who has the rod.
So again, the whole thing, since I last paused and talked about flies and honey and vinegar, it's only about who has more power.
And that's a big problem because no, that's not a solution. And there's a lot of self-service in the claim that power rules. It's very, very, very dangerous. Now, if it isn't power, what is it? Well, it's the antithesis of power. When Christ is
a little
the
time out.
third
Just a little time
temptation
out.
that's offered to Christ when he's in the desert and he encounters Satan is the temptation of power.
All right, put a 1 in the chat if you think Seabass is going to stay for a 1. It's just a 1 minute timeout, and put a 2 if you think he's going to leave.
And so which he refuses. And so we can derive from that the idea that the pattern of Christ's life is the antithesis of power. And what you see in that life is the constant refusal to use force no matter what, right? And the Roman soldiers make fun of him. They say, well, if you're the Son of God, why don't you come off the cross and lay the landscape to waste?
Solid question.
Which is, at least in principle, within the purview of possibility. And the answer is, well, you're not allowed, in the final analysis, you're not allowed to use force no matter what. Right, invitation, logos, not force. And that seems to be tangled into this idea of voluntary self-sacrifice as the antithesis of power.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you were saying, well, just one in general, or if you were answering. I love it. I love it. Zippy said, power is everything. Without power, nothing will get done. Just look at how far religion got using force. I mean, yeah, but hey, and he came back. Oh, projection. I wish I like. It's so funny how we talk about we need to bring back shame and all that kind of stuff, and then it's usually tied into the fact that people aren't religious and are just hedonistic. Like, where's your shame? Where's your shame?
Perhaps then, Jordan, what we might explore is something that I think I heard Emmett Fox describe, was that were we to be invited to save but one soul or entire material empires, we ought always choose the soul, and I suppose also in the Bhagavad Gita, choose Krishna above all the artillery and armory in the world and the greatest weapons available. Choose only Krishna, choose always the divine. That if Christ's power is not materially practiced, and yet indeed we find once more at the center of the discourse that word, that concept, power, the word and concept upon which the postmodernists arrived and you say reductively alighted as conclusive. I wonder, might we consider that where this battlefield ultimately resides is internally, for surely Christ's actions indicate that his power is in self-sacrifice and in inaction and in the refusal to implement force.
Right. And is Christianity the only way to do that? What do you think Christ would prefer? Do you think Jesus Christ would look at all these leftists and just be like, WWJD?
Clearly, when you describe these benefits, if not glory, the practical application and operation of culture and the legacy of the patriarchy of Western civilization, the institutions.
He got you. Oh,
flawed but yet functioning. It's clearly reductive to say that is naught but force. I suppose yet they may say the benefits are inadvertent consequences only afforded in the same way, just to use an example off the top of my head, that the eventual end of slavery ultimately delivers a workforce that gives you the idea of progress.
Then why didn't Jesus say no more slavery? And I think that's a good note to end on. If ending slavery was such an important thing, then why did Jesus himself speak on slavery? That's what I thought. Let's give a big shout out to our boy, Tech. with the $5 super chat. Let's give him another one. Let's give him another one. Why not? Why not? Yummy, 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 yummy. And then, of course, the sponsor of the stream, Unwanted Foe with the double digits. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see what comments I starred. Zippy said, remember, religion does not want you to know what God is. They cannot simplify history and philosophy through dogmatic thinking. Hell yeah. So we started that one. That started an interesting conversation. I did never get an answer from you. I don't think I got an answer from you about if you had to choose be an American or rather sacrifice America or your daughter. I don't know if I got a strong answer, but then a little bit of sucking me off here. I'm excited to follow the Indian Jesus because he challenges me to convey my ideas in a way that would actually hit home with all walks of life. That's some good brain exercising. God, I love this conversation. It's like seeing intellectuality meet spirituality and come to a constant agreement that both are needed to have the best outcome. The balance of the two are key. So I did, in fact, remember that you purposely didn't use religion here, but I absolutely, very, very much appreciate it. Hey, look who we got, the latecomer, the Funk Master General with the $10 super chat. Thank you so much. So I discovered Christianity yesterday, so now I'm a scholar. Please, bro, I don't care if he's a smart psychologist guy. He should just go sit down and look at nature like a block party guy. Shout out to the Funk Master General. There you go. And this is kind of, I think of all the people that have been picking up Christianity as an accessory lately, I think Russell Brand is probably, I would say the spectrum goes from Richard Dawkins to Russell Brand. And I think Russell Brand is the most genuine, that he really is willing to be in this and believe in all that stuff. I think Richard Dawkins is on the complete opposite side in the sense that he has no belief in any of these things, but he's wearing Christianity as a skin suit to virtue signal to other people that he's one of the good ones. And that, when now all of this stuff is so different, culturally, I'm a Christian. When that's not what that means. And it could have been a thing where we talked about like, I don't believe in Jesus Christ as the savior. I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in hell, but I love the Christian values. So culturally, I am a Christian. If that had been in the lexicon, that would have been amazing. I wouldn't be here. I would just be a cultural Christian. But at this point, it's very clear that it's not a separation. It's a conformity, and it's hedging that conformity by saying, well, I'm just a cultural Christian, but you are the lead atheist living on this earth, the number one top tier atheist. And you don't believe in the things. You don't believe in the things. And so again, by saying, well, I'm a cultural Christian, you're saying I believe in the values that just so happen to also be in Christianity, even though I don't believe the truth claims of Christianity, which is not Christianity. And so people like Richard Dawkins, and we'll see what happens with Nala Ray. Maybe she's legit, maybe not. Hell yeah, fuck yeah. No, you are a real one. Fuck that shit. You are a real one. A real one does not fucking sacrifice or sacrifice their family for strangers. That is bullshit. That is bullshit. The implication that the only way to be a real one is to sacrifice your child to the people in charge.
Hurrah!
That's a disgusting thought. A disgusting thought. Shout out to the Funk Master General. Unwanted Foe said TLA, the lead atheist. There you go. Not anymore. Not anymore. I guess that is me. No, right now I'm probably, unfortunately, it would probably be Sam Harris. And I don't want to associate with that motherfucker. I do not want to associate with that motherfucker at all. Again, As I said, I agree with you because you all are the gurus for your own religion. None of you have the same religion. Husbands treat women like, oh, come on, get the fuck out of here with that. And honestly, I feel like yours is an empty hope. Should be your theme song. Go look it up. Well, on that note, we are definitely going to be listening to this in the after party. So if you are not a member of the channel, please do sign up. It is free to join the Discord. Absolutely free. And I think somebody just dropped the link. The party rages on, guys. We are going over there right now to hang out. And even if you are not a member, conversations are still going. But for members only, we get to go in the after party where you're not stuck behind your keyboard. You're actually on screen with me and everybody else. Just sign up, send me a DM, and we will definitely get you in the party. Thank you very much, Nick, and hope to see you guys over there. Let's end on our boy, the Funk Master General. I don't trust the majority of these overnight religious scholar trend that seems to be starting. Perfect bookend, because that was basically what I was saying. And again, I think that Russell Brand of these people is probably more legit and more genuine than a lot of the other people. But I don't think he believes that Jesus Christ was the, I don't think he believes it. I don't think he believes it. He's been too spiritual for too long to not be aware enough of what Christianity says to jump on it at a different time. And it's just convenient that, he got these stupid fucking allegations. Just saying. So thank you again, guys. I really do appreciate you, every single one of you. Those of you who are open up your wallet, I cannot express how important that is. And I appreciate you guys so much. Next weekend is the Dissident Dialogues convention. Got that VIP ticket, so hopefully I'll be making some good connections. We can get some awesome conversations. Some people a lot smarter than me, a lot bigger than me, coming on and telling me, Ludge, you're dumb because of this, that, and that, and I can become even smarter. All of that to look forward to. And, of course, the after party starts right now. I just joined and I see Guamtech and Lana already in there. I will see you guys over there. Thank you so very much for hanging out once again. That is Morty, and I'm your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are out of here. Peace.